actual way in which the rest of the world views the reliability of our country. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm Dr. Joyce Young, a naturopathic physician, board certified, licensed in Oregon, a research scientist, and I waited 20 years for the licensure of naturopathic doctors, holistic preventative medicine in Massachusetts. And if Massachusetts is really on the top of things, how come 21 other states licensed naturopathic doctors before Massachusetts and the Massachusetts Medical Society actually allowed this to happen? People want to know, why are they not given any kind of choice in Obamacare besides drugs and surgery? People want to know what is causing the incredible epidemics of cancer, cardiovascular disease, autism spectrum disorder, Alzheimer's disease, the list, obesity, diabetes, the list just goes on and on and on, and people want to know how come they can't have access to, in Obamacare to some other kinds of analysis of the situation. And furthermore, my area of expertise is environmental medicine, asking the question, what are all the 100,000 chemicals in air, water, food, and consumer products doing to folks? As a research scientist, I can tell you that at the National Library of Medicine, it's very clear that chemicals are causing severe immune system suppression. And just last year, a paper came out indicating that they've known for 30 years that Alzheimer's disease is a brain infection. People want to know, how come the EPA is being shut down? People want to know, why are they being systematically poisoned, and why is this country allowing this?
Thank you, Doctor. As you know, we've had the discussion before, and thank you for your involvement in this, and it's something that should be viewed as an alternative to people. But you brought up some far-reaching issues that are right on target that we didn't address yet, and we should, because both of us are passionate on this issue. All of the things you talked about, the lack of research, the lack of looking into these issues, dealing with core issues. We've touched on how the environment is a health issue. The water we drink, if it's not monitored, and it's a sole source aquifer right here in Cape Cod, the contamination would do immense damage here, and the things we're doing to counter the water mitigation issue and sewage treatment, which threatens the betterment tax on all our homes here as well, that's endangered because that project, that ability to deal with it before the treatment plants and keep our water treated well and clean is at jeopardy because of all the cuts that are there as well. But in terms of looking into the core causes and roots of the diseases and illnesses that we suffer, the drastic cuts in the National Institute of Health research is among the most troubling issues that the Senator and I have talked about in this proposed budget. And if you look at dealing with issues like Medicaid or Medicaid because so many people are in nursing homes, and you're not dealing with research for Alzheimer's that we're making great progress in, not only will it help the lives of people, but the geometric occurrence of this is startling. Yet they're cutting funds in that area. Areas that families struggle with as well. But even delaying the symptomology of that for just a few months would be dramatic to the cost of Medicare and Medicaid as well. So for every dollar invested in that kind of research, there's a short-term payback of $2.28. So there's not an issue that we can't afford it. It's actually a revenue grower. But to your issue of our lack as a country looking into these issues, we are in no position to take steps backwards right now, but that's exactly what this budget is proposing. And we have to fight that at every level. And people have to understand, not just in Massachusetts, but around the country, how devastating these cuts will be to them and their families.
My wife, in the 1990s, as a public health doctor, became the head of all women's health in America in the Clinton administration to run. So I'm going to give you one thing that I know, that a Japanese woman in Japan is 4 times less likely to get breast cancer as an American woman. 4 times less likely. But that Japanese woman's child, raised in America totally, will contract breast cancer at the same rate in the United States. So we know it's something we do to ourselves. We know it's something in our environment, in our food, in our water. It's something that's going on. This whole study of endocrinology all goes to the need to understand this relationship between the environment and our bodies. And when Bill is making reference to the National Institutes of Health budget, NIH should really stand for National Institutes of Hope, because research is medicine's field of dreams from which we harvest the findings that gives hope to families that they will be able to find the cure for that disease that's been running through their family's history. What Trump is proposing, is an 18% cut in the NIH research budget. So here in Massachusetts, we receive about $2.5 billion every single year. We're the largest per capita recipient of NIH research funding. That's why Kendall Square has come alive, because all these kids that got 800s in their math and science and computer boards, they're all coming to Boston to find the cure for Alzheimer's, for diabetes, for cancer. They don't want to write algorithms for hedge funds. They want to dedicate their lives to science, to find the cure for all these diseases. And what Trump is proposing is slashing the funding that keeps those kids in the system. Right now, the first NIH grant for the average scientist is at age 44. If you slash it by yet another 20%, you might as well drive all of these kids out of the system. So from our perspective, we are the science state. We understand what you're saying. We need these young people to take it up as a career, like AmeriCorps. These are the things where the young people want to move to. They want to move to wind, they want to move to solar, they want to move to science, they want to move to medical research, they want to move to educating young people all across this country. That's what they want to do with their lives. If you slash the Department of Energy, the Department of Education, the EPA, the NIH, you are basically taking our future, what we should be as a country, 4% of the world population, what we should be spending tomorrow, and you are undermining it so fundamentally that we would be non-recognizable 4 years from now. So that's why we're going to fight as hard as we can. Yes, sir. Yes, please.
There's a good point to make in this whole area too. It's not only the president. We have to look at the little things that are trickling through already in the House side, the House leadership. And we didn't deal with the issue of finance reform. But when you deal with Citizens United and all the money that's being put into special interests, that's revolving into bills we're seeing get through behind the curtain of what's going on right now. One of the first things we passed was to have the coal companies be allowed to dump their debris and waste in our rivers and streams. That just went right through under the radar. And we have to keep our mind on that House agenda in particular that's there. We've depended on the Senate for years to kill these things with the help of the threat of a veto, but these things have been coming through, so there's a lot more than just the issues that might make the headlines that we have to worry about and keep an eye on and fight every day, particularly coming out of the House.
By the way, we're winning, Massachusetts. We're right. I don't know if you saw this little story about 3 days ago. They have a museum of coal down in Kentucky. You see this story? Unbelievable story. The Museum of Coal in Kentucky, the executive director announced this week that in order to save money, they're going to put solar panels on the roof. Thank you, Cape Cod. Thank you, Cape Cod. We're usually right, but too soon. And so we thank you for that. And what we're going to have to do is just cut it down to 2 more questions, okay, to try to get you done by 8, and that way we would have extended it another half hour, and we started a little bit late. So,
We could just quickly tell their questions on our own, trying to address them.
okay, we'll try to do that. So, question. Okay, go ahead. But it's only the people at the microphone right now. Okay, yes.
Yes. My name is Mike Hager, and I'm from Eastham, and I'm a member of the newly formed Cape Cod Coalition for Safe Communities. We have local issues coming up in town meetings, but that's not what I'm asking about. We have, since February 21, new harsh enforcement measures against undocumented immigrants in the name of national security and public safety. What those regulations are doing, what they have done, in contrast to the laws before, is to put all undocumented immigrants in the same boat, whether they went over the border illegally or whether they simply overstayed a visa, which is simply a civil offense. Now, what this has done, it has created a national tragedy for many people, because the tactics of the ICE have created great anxiety and fear among our immigrant community. Now, those of us here, most of us here may not worry about that, but there are 11.5 million undocumented immigrants, and not all of them are criminals, rapists, murderers. Those people, nobody would object to their deportation. Certainly I wouldn't.
So what do you want us to do?
I'm asking you,
Okay.
what can you do to stop these harsh immigration practices which have echoes of the Gestapo? Number 2, what can you do to address the core problem, which is we don't have an immigration law that works, and we need a path to citizenship for people who are here.
Got it.
And thirdly, in your budget negotiations, can you and your colleagues across the aisle deny funding for the border wall? Can you deny funding for additional 10,000, or is it 15,000, ICE agents? And how many more detention centers that house people as if they were all criminals?
Okay, so, I'll tell you what, I'll just take this answer, and then let Billy take the next one. I'll just answer very quickly. Number 1, what can you do? Well, when that first, refugee order came out and they were going to ban people, my staff director, Mark Gallier, who was here, he was over at Logan Airport because we were trying to talk to lawyers to help with these people who were stranded at Logan Airport. He said, there's 1,000 people there already at the airport. That's on a Saturday night. Then he called me at 10 o'clock at night and said, you got to get on a plane and fly up here. And so I flew up, and then Elizabeth Warren and I addressed overnight 15,000 people in Copley Square. That's spread all across the country. We were up first. 2, we need a comprehensive immigration bill that ensures that there is a pathway to citizenship for these people. They want a wall, we want a citizenship plan for all the people in our country. We're not going to allow $27 billion to get spent on a wall and $7 billion more for 7,000 more ICE agents to be knocking on doors and not have a comprehensive immigration plan for all of those people right here. That would be my quick answer to you, sir, and we're going to make sure that we fight it. Yes, sir, over here. Billy will answer your question.
Right. He might have wanted to, because he talks to me all the time.
But Senator Markey, I have one objection to what you said.
Yes,
I'm not going to wait for four more years before we make changes. I think 2018 is when we're going to make the first change, and we're going to flip the House of Representatives.
Can I say this? Can I say this? It's not the fear of God that motivates people, it's the fear of voters in our business, all right? So I think 2018, here's what happened with Reagan. He wins in 1980, he thinks he's infallible. Okay? And in 1982, we fought him, and you know what we did? We defeated 26 Republicans in the House of Representatives. Guess what happened in 1983 and 84? The more friendly Ronald Reagan showed up, you know, the guy who wanted to work more with Democrats. So you are right, 2018 is our first opportunity.
I'm here to represent tonight two things, every town for gun safety and democracy.
All right.
A specific question that they've asked me to ask is there's a House bill and a Senate bill on CCP, the concealed carry reciprocity.
Yeah, basically, if you have a license to carry in Texas, you can come into Massachusetts with the same rights.
You can bring your concealed carry
Yes.
gun, you can walk into a kindergarten or into a university anywhere you want.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that doesn't make any sense. It's amazing the states' rights crowd that believes the state should be autonomous and make its own decisions. All of a sudden you're saying states like Massachusetts can't make a decision, that other states can make it for them. But it's deeper than that. Look, we need some common sense gun laws, and they're overdue. Every time there's a terrible tragedy, you turn on CNN and see people with a moment of silence on the House floor. Well, there's been too much silence on the House floor on this issue. We can't get... We participated in a sit-in that finally galvanized a lot of attention, but yet they still didn't put the bill on the House floor. If the bill on the House floor, a simple bill, like saying if you're in the no-fly list, you shouldn't be able to purchase explosives and weapons legally. Let's get some votes on things. The immigration issue is the same thing. If we had a vote, I believe, on a comprehensive immigration reform, the type that was passed in the Senate 3 years ago, it would pass. So would some of those common sense gun laws. They would pass. One of the things hurting our trust in people right now is the lack of accountability. I'm not afraid to make a vote. Put it on the floor, let's vote on it, that's your job. On those issues, we'd meet with some success, on the issues that was addressed by the other gentleman, we'd meet with some success on that too. Yet, they won't put bills on the floor, even for a vote.
Yeah, so, yeah, we're going to make sure that NRA stands for not relevant anymore in American politics. So, look, here's what we have to do, and I apologize to everybody, because those were the two final questions. And now, and now we've moved on. So here's what I would propose, that we do take two final questions, and then anyone else that has a question, please come up, and Bill and I will stay here, because we want to let everyone who came be able to know that we stayed close to some remote semblance of schedule, which we promised you when we came. So why don't we go over here, and then over here, and then the others, and we apologize to you. If you could just come up, and we'll be more than willing to answer your question in person. Yes.
I'm Brian O'Malley for Provincetown's delegate to the Barnstable County Assembly. The question is short. I don't expect you to really have an answer, but I'm interested in your perspective. What concerns me is the growing inequality of wealth and income in this country. As economist Thomas Piketty has pointed out, we've seen this at several times before in history, notably in the lead up to the 1928 crash, and again in the lead up to the 2008 collapse. We're seeing it happen again. The issues that are behind this are much, much bigger than Donald Trump, although his administration is certainly going to accelerate this. How do we try to begin to bring back the fundamental balance that drove this country through most of the middle part of the 20th century, which was that the people who produced the stuff got to buy it and to enjoy it and to have a standard of living? This is having an impact that is so severe on employment, on housing, on access to health care, on mental health, drug addiction. It's across the boards. This is grinding us, and if we don't address it, and if we crash again, we don't begin to have the reserves, and you know that, to rebound. How do we prevent this?
Okay, so thank you, sir. My father was able to send 3 sons to Boston College Law School, a milkman. Can people do that today? Boston College is $70,000 a year for one person, right? So the world has changed. And the aggregation of income increasingly goes up to the top 2% of those who are working in our country, making it harder for everyone else. So number one, and you can't ignore this because you have to have an agenda leaving here because you've asked a very big question, a big question. But just understand, in the Affordable Care Act, proposal to repeal everything that we've done, there's a cut of $865 billion in Medicaid that goes to help people afford health insurance in our country. As Ralph Waldo Emerson said, health is the first wealth, if you want to talk about income inequality. If you strip away, for 26 million people, the health care benefits which they have, well, that $865 billion was going to be used for the $1 trillion tax break for the upper 1 percentile. That's their play, understand? They harbor an ancient animosity towards each and every one of these programs. They want to turn them into ancient relics of what they are today. That's their goal. That's the plan. So for income inequality, what could be crazier than a tax break for those who don't need it to take it away from those who are given the health care, which is the first wealth? And you can look at issue after issue, including a 20% cut in the Department of Education, a 20% cut at the Department of Labor. What are you looking at? You're looking at protections for unions that fight to ensure that the wages of working people are going to go up in a way that they can afford to live in this country in a way that is like the middle class of the 1950s and the 1960s. That there's an education budget that can ensure that every kid can go for free to community colleges in our country so they can continue to improve their skill sets and they can get the job training which they need. Now, you can look at agency by agency in order to look at how he's going to be just reversing any of the efforts that we have to have in order to ensure that income inequality is reversed. But it begins with this tax cut. Because the tax cut is the central part of the plan. Because these billionaires, to whom he is beholden, do not believe that there is any national responsibility to give people the skills which they need, so that there is a democratization of access to opportunity through healthcare, through education, through the training programs that were there in preceding generations, but have now been eliminated. Okay, so that's what this is going to be all about. This battle for income inequality really goes to the core of the soul of our country. And so the last question will be over here, and I'll let Billy take that one.
Hi, I'm Sheila Bonnell, and I live in Orleans, and my question is a short one, and that is regarding a special prosecutor. We all agree, or many people agree, that it would be a good idea to have an independent special prosecutor, and that the hearings thereof should be public. But I don't have a sense of how that is ever going to happen. Is that coming from the grassroots? Is that up to us? Or is there any way that the current system, which I see as having lost its system of checks and balances, because one party is in charge of all 3 branches of government.
Well, you're right on target with that issue. It's going to come from meetings like this around the country because they are in control of all 3 levers of government, and they're not going to turn their back on their president right now, regardless of what the issue is. Now, as a DA, I understand. I don't think that, and I hope, the power does exist with the Deputy Attorney General who's going to be handling it, the investigation that you're talking about, can choose a special prosecutor. He has that authority. I don't think he will, but let's wait to see how he acts in the first place, but it's essential. But let's not conflate the issues either, because you can have a special prosecutor, you can have independent legislative investigations, which I think should be more broad-based, and you still need, and they're not mutually exclusive, an independent commission, like we had in 9/11, so that we know everything, and the public knows everything that happened, and importantly, we have recommendations. This isn't about just the blame game, or what happened, so we can blame someone. This is about being able to make some changes so it doesn't happen again. We did that successfully, or not perfectly, with 9/11. Great changes. We follow those things, continue to do that, and we have to do better. Yet, that's why we need both of those approaches along with the commission. And I don't think it's going to happen unless the public puts pressure on that to happen. And that's unfortunate. Well, you're looking at Massachusetts and you're saying how. In other states, where people are going to just toe the line, they need pressure on that. If they fear their election is in jeopardy, they will act. Because it's the right thing to do. Don't forget, with that issue, in my opinion, and in opinion I think of the vast majority of Americans, the other strength we have is we're right on these issues. We're right on the Affordable Care Act, and not just it's a masquerade for a tax break, but also people are saying people should be independent and take care of themselves. Think about what will happen with the repeal of the Affordable Care Act on a young woman, a young mother, trying to bring up a family, trying to get a job and becoming independent. One illness, and I have people come to me and tell stories about their relatives in other states and things that are happening. One illness destroys all that, and you don't have any alternative other than to get Medicaid help or other help when you want to be independent. And women in that process, with the repeal of this, are going to be charged different rates because they're a woman, because they bring up children. Where would we be without a mother bringing up a child? Mother's Day is coming up, and they want to make sure around Mother's Day they're repealing a gender-neutral rate base, so they're charging women up to 47% or more for the same services, the same health care plan as they do other people. So these are the things we have to address, getting back to the other man's question about income equality. If we're going to have a tax program, we have to understand too, we have to allow the middle class people the opportunity when they work for it to be able to sustain that and not be crushed by a devastating health bill or the like. Thank you for the call. Come on down, the rest of the people.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for coming out here tonight. I very much appreciate it. I can promise you that on the Senate floor, Elizabeth Warren and I will be fighting every single day. And that Kelly will be fighting with our delegation on the floor of the United States House of Representatives. And here, Sarah and Julian will be battling up in Massachusetts with you as the grassroots organizers of Cape Cod and of our country to stand up for all of the things which we have to win. Thank you all so much. Thanks for coming out here. Good night.